In this video, we're going to talk about Alpha 3D, which is a new method of working with alphas that was introduced in ZBrush 4R8, as well as a couple of other little bonus things that I think you'll find useful when it comes to generating geometry directly from alphas. To start with, we're going to open up this block here that was created by using the ZModeler tools. If I go to the Alpha menu, down at the bottom of the main screen, you see there's a button called From Mesh. This will allow me to create an alpha from the mesh. If I click that, it will basically bring up an alpha version of the document that you see behind it. So this is a grab doc, but I can rotate the alpha here, and I can store different angles of this object. So let's say, for example, I want to store an angle of the block at this angle. I can set my map resolution, so we'll set it to 1024. Click OK, and now I've got an alpha based on this bit of geometry. So if we go over to the polysphere here, and we'll just use the standard brush with that alpha and make sure that I've got a drag rectangle stroke, and I can drag that out, and you can see that it's created an alpha based on that shape. If I go to the chisel brush, select that alpha, make sure that we go to drag rectangle stroke, it'll give me an even stronger instance of that alpha. If I hold down the Alt key, I can add with it. So you see we create this very interesting alpha representation of that 3D shape. Now let's go back to our block here, and we'll store another instance of it. We'll store it from the front like this. I will go to Alpha, From Mesh, and again that stores it. As you see here, I'll zoom out a little bit so we've got a bit of a border around it. Set our resolution to 1024, and then click OK. Now that stores the alpha as you see there. I'll go back to my polysphere and just click and drag, and you see that it draws that alpha. It's a really nice way of creating some mechanical shapes or some interesting surface details by just capturing alphas based on pieces of geometry that you can load into the document window. If I turn down my Z intensity, that'll turn down the intensity of the alpha as it applies to the surface. Now, the 3D alpha shouldn't be confused with the VDM brushes, as the vector displacement map brushes. That's a different type of brush which we'll be talking about in another video. Something else I want to show you when it comes to these brushes is we've got the option here, if I go to Alpha, to click To Mesh instead of From Mesh. So if I click To Mesh, it will generate a 3D mesh based on the alpha that I have stored here. So this is an interesting option as well, and it's something that you've actually had in ZBrush before. If I go to my alphas here and select, for example, the arrow alpha, and then go to Alpha to Mesh, it generates an arrow alpha as a mesh, but you notice that it's got sort of the backing plane behind it. If I go to the Alpha menu and come down here to modify, or excuse me, come down here to Make 3D, let me scroll that so you can see it. The Make 3D menu is right here. We have the option to Make 3D. Now this has been in ZBrush for quite some time, but it's often been overlooked. If I click Make 3D, it generates 3D objects based on alphas. So I can just adjust my resolution here. So we've got our mesh resolution, our mesh depth resolution, and our mesh smoothness. So I can turn up the mesh resolution, Make 3D again, and you'll see we'll get a sharper looking piece of geometry here. There we go. And this is actually really handy for creating, bits that you might want to use for an insert mesh, or creating greebles that you can use to insert or decorate the surface of a model. Any type of alpha that you've got, any type of grayscale image, you can then turn into a 3D object. Now some of this is a bit supplanted by the Text 3D and SVG tool, so the vector shape, being able to import SVGs and create geometry from them, as well as being able to bring an alpha in and create 3D using the alpha brush to mesh here. But I do think it is valuable that this does generate the alpha with no backing panel. So those are 3D alphas. Again, it's not the same as the vector displacement brushes, which we'll talk about next. The VDM brushes are unlike alphas, which stick straight out from the backing plane, so it's either going in or going out. there's no undercuts. The VDM brushes allow you to have a very complicated object or a complicated shape that grows out from your brush that has undercuts and overhangs in a way that you just can't do using standard alphas, which are only grayscale. So let's take a look at that now.